What's up guys, welcome to a new video, and in this video we're going to learn how to set up our leading edge inflatable kite surfing kite. We are at the world famous REAL Watersports in Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, the absolute best place to take lessons, and they have this incredible backyard that you can set up all your equipment on. We have an onshore wind, so let's get straight into it and learn how to set up our leading edge inflatable kite. So once you have all your gear, you've got your bar and lines, you've got your kite, and you've got your pump. Now we need to understand where the wind is coming from, because where we set up our gear is going to be relative to the wind direction. So right now we have a wind direction that's coming directly onshore. So you can see some of the flags behind me, they're going this direction. So I want to make sure that I am running all of my lines and all of my equipment with the wind. The first thing we can do is we can either set up our bar and lines first, or we can set up our kite first. And I would always say it's really important to set up your kite first, because despite the fact we have this lovely big green garden behind me, it can get quite busy. And if you lay out your lines first, there's a chance that people might trip over your lines and mess everything up. So we like to set up our kite first. Now this kite is going to come pre-folded, and we are going to inflate this kite first. Now it comes, most of the time it will come folded in threes. So you're going to let it out, and every time we set up our gear, we put our back to the wind. So you guys are where the wind is coming from. So I put my back to the wind, and I'm going to lay out my kite like so. Now today's not particularly windy, but you want to be aware that if you lay your kite out and you put it down like this, it's probably going to blow away. So what we want to do is get our pump and get our pump leash and attach it to the leash attachment point on our kite. We also want to make sure we have the correct pump piece. Now these pieces, you can tell there's a whole bunch of different pieces here with this pump. Each is for a different brand, okay? And your kite will come with the piece that you need. This is a reed-in kite, so it's going to be this big valve here, and this is just going to slot onto the hose just like this, okay? So you're going to slot this on just like that. Now we're ready to go. We have our pump, and this is a double action pump. So this pumps both this way and this way. Air comes out of the tube, and we have our pump leash here, okay? So this leash is going to connect to the kite behind us. Here, we're going to look for different attachment points, and here is a great attachment point for our pump leash. We're going to put this hook over here, and we're going to pump our kite up with our back to the wind. I'm going to move you so that you can follow along here, and I've also got my GoPro attached to me so you can see. So now that we have our pump leash attached to our kite, we are now going to pump up our kite. So we're going to attach our hose piece, and then we are going to pump both up and down, and this is going to, okay, so this pump also has a few different modes. It's got single pump mode and dual pump mode, so it pumps both ways, and that's so pumping going up and pumping going down. There's air going into this kite. We're leashed to it, so as it increases in size and volume, it's going to catch more wind. Like I mentioned, the wind is coming from behind me, and I've got my feet on the pump so that the kite doesn't fly away. And it will eventually unfold itself. You can unfold it ahead of time or let it kind of unroll itself like this. The challenge you have then is that the bridles might then get caught up in the kite. So I'm actually going to just pull some of the bridles off of here like this so that they don't get tangled in the kite. And I'm going to open this up as I go, keep pumping. So the question then becomes, how much do I pump this kite up? Well, the answer is this kite is designed to catch wind and catch air. And the main structure of this kite comes from the leading edge components. Now, there often is on the leading edge some text that says how much this should be pumped up to. And this kite says 9 PSI, underpowered, and 9.5 powered. Okay, now our hose came off. So we also have a gauge here that often works when you pump it, but it's not a very good reliable metric to go off of. So basically what I do is I just pump it up until it sounds solid, has a high-pitched tapping sound, and also it's hard for me to push my thumb into it. Another good test as well is whether it's easy to fold. This thing is going to sit on the water ready to relaunch whenever you're kite surfing. So you want it to, if it hits the water, you want it to spring back. And that's exactly what this does. It springs back nice and easy, making the canopy nice and open, ready to catch more wind and relaunch. So I'm going to, this is tricky with this GoPro. I'm going to pull out the valve, okay? I'm going to put this together like this. Screw this up. Now our valve is closed effectively, and this is our kite. Now we can remove our leash, and we want to make sure we're holding our leading edge from the center. We want to make sure we're holding our leading edge from the center and with ourselves upwind and the kite downwind. No matter whenever you are, whatever situation you're in, always make sure that you're upwind of the kite and the kite is downwind of you. So if I want to walk downwind, there's not much wind now, so I have to lift this kite up and move it downwind. If I want to walk into wind, I face the wind and have the kite trailing behind me. And you can see it kind of just flies itself normally. If I'm on one side, this kite will want to flip up and it will get all unwieldy on me. So you always want to handle the kite from the center. And then you also want to make sure that no one else is grabbing the leading edge or the kite, because it'll make it more prone to catching the wind. You'll often see at the beach, people might want to help you, a partner might want to help you. Just let them be as they are. You can handle this kite from the center of your leading edge here. Okay, so in order to set this up, if we were to let this go like this, if there were more wind, it would just blow away, right? Because the wind pushes underneath the canopy, lifting it up. So in order to have this thing sit in one place, we're going to want to flip it over. So we're going to flip it over in a second, but before that, I just want to talk to you about some of the components of this kite. So we had our valve here that we used to inflate the leading edge, and you notice that the struts as well got inflated as well whilst we were doing that. That is because each one of these struts has a hose that goes to it, and on these hoses there are hose clips. Okay, so you can actually separate these chambers. So you can separate the leading edge from the struts. This is a safety feature, so that if for some reason you're out kite surfing, you crash your kite and the leading edge deflates or the valve pops out, then there is still inflation within the struts, and you can wrap the whole kite up and self-rescue and have some flotation for swimming back. So you can clip these off just by pinching on them, and they're like an IV clip apparently. So they're covered in neoprene here, as you can see. They're covered in neoprene, but you can pull the neoprene off and see how they work. So here you can see it's like a clamped thing. You push away to open it, and you push it down, and it will clamp that hose. Of course, you want to pull that neoprene over again so it doesn't cut the canopy. But this is how the mechanism works for separating your struts from your leading edge. And you want to do that with each one of your struts going through. This kite doesn't have any on the outside struts because it's trying to save weight, and this kite is designed to be a lot lighter, but at least you have one chamber that's full with air. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and flip this over now. We're going to leave this facing into the wind. One way you can figure out where the wind is coming from is, well, hopefully at this point you know where the wind's coming from. You've seen the flags. You can pick up some grass or some sand and see which direction it goes. And you want this leading edge strut to be facing into the wind, and this canopy should be pressed down evenly on both sides, meaning that it's going to be stuck to the ground and not going to fly off. And in order to make sure that's the case, we're going to either put sand on it or our board with the fins up on it, or we can take a and place that on the canopy as well. This will ensure that the kite does not fly away. Now that we've got our kite set up, we wanted to do this once again, remember, because it takes up the smallest amount of surface area, as opposed to if you're running your lines, it's going to take up a lot more space. So now this can sit here and we can run our lines. Now, if you've done any research or you've looked into it at all, running your lines, there's two ways of doing it. You can either run your lines downwind of the kite or upwind of the kite. Now, there are benefits to each. If you run your bar and lines downwind of the kite, so you start with the bar ends at the kite and run with the bar ending downwind, it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot clearer, it's a lot easier to see your connections, but you have to flip the bar upside down. So instead of red being on the left, you're going to lay the bar on the ground with red on the right. If you run your lines upwind of the kite, then you get to put the bar in the same way that you would fly it with red on the left, but then you have to lay your lines out and drag your kite over the lines and connect them, and there's no clear path to seeing that everything's connected correctly. So for this instance, we're going to run our lines downwind of the kite and we're going to flip our bar so red is on the right, okay? So let's go and do this. I'm going to move you to make this a bit more easy to see. So now we're going to take our bar, this one wasn't wrapped particularly well, and we're going to take our bar ends, we're going to find each one of our bar ends here, or our line ends here, and we're going to lay them down at the kite. Now the goal here is to lay them all out in 4, not to worry about how they are right now. We're going to separate them in a second. We're going to separate them all together using a certain method. So we leave the ends towards the kite and we walk these lines, all 4, off of the bar as we walk downwind. Remember, the wind is at our back here, walking this downwind. It's key to make sure you have all 4 at once, otherwise you're going to make a lot of work for yourself, unwinding and catching up on the different lines as you unwind one more than the other. Okay. So now that we've unwound the lines off of our bar, because we are rigging downwind of the kite, we want to turn the bar upside down. So we're going to put red on the right, as opposed to the normal way that we would fly it. We're going to put red on the right, and we could separate these lines individually. We could take each one of them and run them out to each side of the kite, but we're not going to do that. We can do it a lot quicker. We can step inside the outside lines here with our bar laid out nice and clearly, with the chicken loop nice and cleared and not folded up over the bar or anything. And we're going to grab our 2 steering lines. We're going to step inside our steering lines, and then we are going to separate them from the center lines. So I'm going to grab the 2 center lines. I'm going to grab the red one in my right hand because we're upside down, downwind of the kite. And I'm going to walk these through like this. Okay, so the center lines are between my legs, and the steering lines are on the outside of my legs, and I'm holding these out so my legs are actually separating these lines, making sure there's no twists in them. This is really essential. We want to make sure that this is perfectly done, because eventually we are going to attach ourselves to that kite and of course launch it, and we want to make sure that the correct lines are connected to the correct part of the kite. So now we're at the end of the kite. Everything might get a little bit tangled, and we want to make sure that we're not letting go of the way that we've separated these. And I want to put my steering line out nice and wide of the kite. I'm going to put my center line, the red center line, towards the right, and then the other 2 lines nice and clearly out, with the steering line on the outside of the kite here as well. Now we want to prep our bridles. So I'm going to reach through and grab the bridles here. Make sure they're nice and clear, okay? You want to make sure that they are making Ys, not X's. So if the bridle is like this, you know that there's something wrong. You're gonna have to untangle it. And this is what you're going to be looking for, like this, okay? Everything nice and clean, as it should be. Other things you should be looking for are frays like this. This is a potential issue. Here, I think it's okay because it's just where they've been back stitched. I'm pretty happy with that. And then you're going to also grab the bridle on this side, pull it through, make sure it's nice and clear, Okay, so now we have our kite prepped. We now want to connect the lines to the kite. And in order to do this, we're going to go one side to the other. I want to go systematically, one by one, through each connection, making sure I get it right and end at the other side of the kite. And you'll notice that we'll have, on the end of our line, we'll have a loop here, just like this. And then on the kite side, we'll have a knot, okay? So in this situation, loops go to knots. Knots don't go to knots and loops don't go to loops. It's really important. If you'll see here, this is our steering line. It has a loop on it. And we'll see our bridle line here. This also has a loop on it. So if you encounter a situation where you have two loops, you know that there's a problem there. That should be setting off alarm bells. You don't want to try and connect these anyway. You're not going to try and tie a knot in them, basically. And the same thing goes for one of your center lines. If you have a center line which has a knot on it and you're trying to connect it to another knot on the kite, you got an issue there. So you need to stop and reassess. Now this situation, this line has a knot that's formed through a loop, which can be a bit confusing, but you just need to make sure that if there's a knot on this line, this is what you're going to be going for. So I'm going to put that back down here and I'm going to take my steering line now, okay? And the way that this works is very simple. We're not going to tie any crazy things. You don't need to learn any magical knots. You're just going to turn this loop into a lark's head. So you're going to take this and you're going to push the stem through the loop like this, and it will create its own loop that you can then slide the knot through that is attached to your kite. And then you can pull this back on itself, just like this, and it will make a connection like this that's easy to remove when you undo your lines at the end of your session. So this is good enough to hold the power of your kite. So once we've done our steering line, we've noticed that red is connected to red, or in this case, pink is pink. Loops go to knots. That looks good. Now we're going to move on to our bridles. Double check that everything looks okay, everything's clear. And then we're going to do the check that the knot goes to the loop this time. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to push the stem through the loop to form a lark's head. And I'm going to put the knot through this loop. I'm going to slide it back on itself. And that is going to be the connection right there. We're now going to go to the next line. Going to go and do the second center line that connects to the bridle. We're going to do the same situation, okay? We're going to push the stem through the line, and we're going to tighten it on the line itself here. So now we've reached the last steering line. Here we have a white line attached to a gray bridle. I know that this is correct though. You just want to double check. Different brands have different colors, but the main thing is that red goes to red and the other colors go to the other colors. Okay, so here we go. That's our connection there. Okay, so now that we've connected our lines to our kite, we want to just double check our work. Like I said earlier, we're connecting ourselves to this device. We want to make sure that it's super safe, just like you would anything else. So we're going to take our steering lines and we're going to walk them out individually. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to walk it down and make sure it's nice and separated from the rest, because you can see they look like they've tangled behind me. I know because I walked my legs through them that they didn't, and I can see here that this line goes to the bar without tangling. I'm going to take my other steering line and I'm going to walk it out just to double check. It looks like it's crossed here, but I know that I walked my legs through it, so I'm pretty sure that this just crossed behind me, so that when we get closer to the bar, we'll find out that this in fact is not crossed, and you can see there it's not crossed, which is good. And then our other two center lines go to the connection points in the kite. So here I can see by doing this little check that all of my steering lines are untangled from my center lines. You will notice that sometimes with some brands, they'll have the same colored center lines. That's often because there's a swivel of some sort. These two center lines, if they're twisted, don't matter quite as much as if a steering line is twisted with a center line. You really don't want to be in that situation. Steering lines are separate from center lines, and our center lines are also known as our power lines because they hold the power of the kite. So there you have it. That is how you set up your leading edge kite. Let's reiterate. First thing we do is we set up our kite because it takes up the smallest amount of surface area. We connect our pump leash to the leash connection point and use the correct valve to pump up our kite, making sure that the wind is at our back and the kite is downwind of us. Once it's adequately inflated, and we can test this by pushing our thumbs into the leading edge to make sure it's not folding, and we can also grab the leading edge and fold it over on itself to make sure it springs back. Once it's adequately inflated and to the correct PSI that's stated on the leading edge, then we can flip over our kite onto the ground. Once it's on the ground, you want to secure it with a sandbag or your board or something heavy. We want to make sure that the canopy is being pressed onto the ground, and we want to make sure that central strut is facing straight towards the wind. If we are rigging our bar downwind, we then want to put the ends of the lines, walk them downwind of the kite. And because we're downwind of the kite, we want to turn the bar upside down. So we want to make sure that red is on the right. We're then going to lay that bar out nice and clear, and we're going to step inside the outside steering lines. We're going to grab the inside power lines and walk them out all together as one, checking for knots and frays. Once we reach the kite, we're going to lay the lines out nice and wide and clear from each other. So the steering lines we're going to separate on the outside of the kite, and the center lines are going to be clearly out in front of you, making sure we go one by one. We're not letting go of them all in a bunch. Once we've done that, we're going to connect up the lines to the kite. So we want to make sure that the colors match and that loops go to knots. If you find yourself in a situation where you have two loops, not a good sign. You've done it wrong. Loops go to knots and red goes to red, gray goes to gray. You know how that goes. All right, so that's how you set up your leading edge inflatable kite here at REAL Watersports, the mecca for kite surfing. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to create more tutorial videos like this, more of an inside look at the kite surfing industry. Follow for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. If you have any comments, leave them down below as well.